All right, so for our next presentation with Stephanie Doucet, A Personal Story of Hope. Stephanie is joining us from Trenton, Ontario. Thank you so much for joining us today, Stephanie. Just a little bit of background for our audience is that after surviving childhood leukemia, a CNS relapse where Stephanie lost the vision in her right eye and a bone marrow transplant, she completed a B.Sc in wildlife biology and conservation. Then while pursuing a veterinarian assistance college program, she was diagnosed with a radiation-induced meningioma requiring 2 surgeries, which left Stephanie with no hearing in her right ear. And Stephanie has developed many, many tips and tricks over the years. And so she's here with us today to share her experiences and her tips and tricks and to provide a personal story of hope for those who might be going through some similar things in their lives. So thank you so much for joining us today, Stephanie. I really appreciate it. Why don't we start off by you telling us a little bit about what life was like pre-brain tumor diagnosis?
All right. Yeah, so basically, I had a childhood full of, well, not full of cancer, but it started out with cancer. At age 5, I was diagnosed with childhood leukemia. And then partway into my treatment, I relapsed in my central nervous system, which, as Janik has already sort of said, that caused the loss of vision in my right eye. And I had cranial radiation to put me into remission. And then that was followed by total body radiation in preparation for a bone marrow transplant that I had for my brother, who was 9 at the time.
Wow, and here's your beautiful family and all these photos. Thanks for sharing this.
Yes.
Great. Okay, and so here we have a little bit, what, is that the right slide? Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a continuation. So
yeah.
Sort of later into throughout grade school and high school, kind of talking about like what Barb was saying, how a lot of patients are have cognitive deficits. So despite being warned that my treatment would likely cause neurocognitive deficits, I actually did not have very many. I was getting really high grades throughout high school and grade school. And I liked, every year I would walk in the survivor lap with the Relay for Life. And even in grade 12, I did a speech at my school, Relay for Life, with my brother. And so shortly after becoming an adult, I actually wasn't followed by oncology anymore. Not exactly sure how that happened. It kind of was a combination of, because I was going to university, so I switched towns and stuff like that. But basically, by the time high school came around, I was ready to leave my cancer life behind me.
Yes.
So I went to the University of Guelph. The transition went fairly well. I did use the Accessibility Center at the university, mostly for my vision loss, because like I said, I didn't really have any cognitive deficits. And a little bit like Barb talked about, like I didn't really feel like I had a disability because I'd grown up with no vision in my right eye, but it had kind of just become part of who I was, and I didn't really feel like I needed help. But eventually, like I think I did one test in like this really dark room and decided that I needed help because I couldn't see the paper.
Fair enough.
So yeah, so I ended up seeing a what's it called? Not a therapist, but
like a counselor sometimes?
Counselor, yes, yeah. Sorry.
It's okay.
The word escaped me.
It's okay.
A counselor at the Accessibility Center, and he was really helpful in sort of telling me, like, this is what I think would really help you, and as an accommodation. So I did get extra time on my test, but they also enlarged my test, which was really awesome. Really helped me I remember one time I had an exam that they actually forgot to enlarge it, and I was like, ah. So I went and asked them to enlarge it in.
Good.
That was really helpful. The other thing I found really helpful is to talk to your teachers, and this comes to into the disclosure part that Barb was talking about, in terms of whether you should disclose things. So one thing I really found is anytime I had like a lab that involved doing things, like as opposed to just a lecture, I would email all my teachers ahead of time as to sort of introduce the fact that I had vision loss. And then during my first lab, I would just go up and introduce myself and say, hey, like, I'm Stephanie, I sent you an email, and I was just wondering if, do you foresee any issues I might have, actually like doing stuff in the lab.
Well, good for you for taking that initiative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
And I even had one teacher that I think I just contacted her by email to start with, and she answered right away. She's like, well, I don't know, but I'll try the lab this afternoon with one eye closed, and I'll let you know.
Oh. Well, it's good. I mean, it's part of sensitivity training too, right? So yeah, good for her for trying that.
So I thought, that most of my teachers would just be like, thanks for letting me know. If you have trouble, let me know. And, and that's, I would just say, okay. And I try things out, and
So it looks like here you had some challenges with seeking a job when you were looking for a job.
So basically after university, I had some issues. I never did get my driver's license because of my vision loss. So, and I know a lot of applications or job things would say like you need your driver's license, but I'm like, I don't have it. But then there's also the issue of actually getting to the job that doesn't work very well. And where I'm from, like there's not really any public transit. So
I'll actually, just a quick side note, I meant to mention this after Barb's presentation earlier when Barb talked about Charity Village as being one of those websites that people can check for jobs. I noticed recently on the Charity Village website, because there's so many companies that have shifted to working from home and remotely. They have two sections now. As soon as you go on the Charity Village page, remote jobs and jobs in person. So that will hopefully allow for some flexibility for a lot of people who might have some difficulties getting to a job, right? Outside their home.
I'll definitely look into that. I think another the no job experience. So like I was really academically focused. So I had trouble multitasking, so I couldn't really do school and work at the same time. So where's my note? I wrote it. So when I got out into the real world of employment, I kind of felt lost because I was so just like academic focused, and that was my thing. So,
that's fair. That's fair. Oh, look at these cute animals.
That's my cat and my brother's dog, giant dog. Who thinks she's like a lap dog.
I was gonna say.
So as I was saying, I sort of didn't really have any job experience after graduating. I did a few different like miscellaneous jobs, but I loved spending time with animals. So, and I didn't have any like hands-on experience working with animals other than like my own cat and stuff. So after a couple of years, I decided to apply for a veterinary assistant course.
Awesome. And that was back in 2016. Okay.
And that's when, just before I started.
So how long had you started? How long were you in that position before you were diagnosed?
Well, I'm trying to think exactly when do you usually apply to post-secondary school?
Maybe like the spring or summer before?
So maybe I guess it would be about a year.
Okay.
Like I said, I really don't remember.
But, no, it's okay.
basically, I just know that probably at least since like the beginning of 2016, I would have been planning to go.
Yeah.
I would think in September of 2016.
Yeah.
So
you were experiencing some like headaches and earaches.
Yeah.
For a few months there, right?
I remember like I would tell my doctors like basically since Christmas. So basically since the beginning of 2016, I've been experienced headaches and went to my family doctor multiple times. I mean, to his whatever, like, headaches are very broad.
Sure.
So I don't blame him for not like automatically like, yeah, let's go get an MRI right away because,
Yeah.
But so yeah, eventually he did order an MRI, and I was diagnosed eventually with a meningioma, which they are pretty sure was likely caused by radiation I had as a child, because I did have fairly high dose cranial radiation. And yeah, so that is my MRI.
Yeah.
So basically,
this is surgery number 1.
Yeah. So I kind of put it right after, because I literally did just like get my MRI, and then the tech was like, okay, you can get dressed, but you need to follow me to emerge because the doctor wants to talk to you.
Right. That must have been really scary.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny because I just remember just, okay.
Right.
Like, I mean, maybe it's because I spent my childhood in hospital that I was kind of like, yeah, no big deal.
Yeah.
And I think I was just happy that, hey, something's actually happening about all these headaches.
Yeah. It's a bit of relief, kind of putting a name to it, right? So that you can kind of move forward with the treatment plan.
Yeah. And yeah, like I said, I had a lot of fond memories of the hospital as a child. I remember like after surgery, I did have a lot of high anxiety because it wasn't the same as I remembered it ended up.
Sure.
Because I mean, your memories are kind of different as you're a kid versus an adult. But
for sure.
Yeah, so they just did an emergency partial resection.
Okay.
And then I was told that it would be slow growing. At this point, they didn't necessarily link it back to my childhood radiation yet. So they just assumed it was sort of a regular meningioma, and which is protocol to just sort of, watch and wait because it usually grows really slow. So I went as planned to my first semester in college and completed it, no problem. I mean, I had my whole university degree, which I found was pretty helpful. I also had a lot of like, I remember a class on terminology, like medical terminology, and I just remember kind of giggling to myself when the teacher would be like, okay, so oma means tumor,
right,
and the meninges are part of your brain, so what would a meningioma mean?
Right.
And everybody's in the class is like,
You're
I don't know, and I'm like, okay. I just remember
personal experience here.
Yeah, there's an awesome health care team on campus. I went to St. Lawrence College in Kingston, and they were really helpful in like keeping me up to date and making sure, like, if I needed MRIs, I could get to them. And I think I remember going to them because eventually I did start having headaches again. And I was worried about, always taking Tylenol and whether it was, too much, or, should I be proactively taking it, or is that safe, sort of thing?
Right.
Like, I don't necessarily have a headache yet, but I know that if I don't take one, I'm going to have a headache. So they're really helpful, helping me with that sort of transition. And then I was really close to Kingston, where I got the hospitals where I got my MRI. So that was nice.
So that was convenient.
Yeah, convenient. And then, like I said, eventually the headaches did start up again. And I ended up basically talking to my neurosurgeon and saying, he's like, it's probably, it's grown a lot faster than they expected. So he decided that another surgery was probably the best option. So I postponed my second semester and had second surgery in December. So, or sorry, January. Yeah.
Yeah.
Finished my classes in December for that semester, and then had my second surgery in January. And it was a really long surgery. I had both ENT and my neurosurgeon in on it because my surgery or my tumor was really sort of around my ear
Okay.
canal and stuff. So, and that's what ended up losing how I lost the hearing in that ear.
Okay.
And then it was also really wrapped around my facial nerve. So I still don't really have any feeling in my face.
Okay.
At least this side of the face, like the other side is fine. But I did find that surgery went way better than my first one because I was actually like prepared for it. And like I remember, like you see me knitting there. I brought, made sure I brought stuff that
Yeah.
I knew would help with my anxiety. And
What were you knitting in that photo?
it's a shawl type thing, like
Nice.
like a little scarf thing. Yeah. So that surgery definitely went a lot better.
Good. Good to hear.
Even though it
And
was a bigger surgery.
yeah, yeah. So then you fast forward to going back to college in January 2018. How was
Yeah.
that experience for you?
It was a little bit tough
Yeah.
because it's a 1-year program. So usually you would do your first semester like I did in September, and then second semester in January of the next year. And so, there's a lot of friendship groups, almost like high school,
Mm-hmm.
where you get those sort of cliques.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
So in my case, because when I went back in January of 2018, it was a whole new set of kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I had already sort of felt a little bit out of place because I was a little bit older than most of the kids. But at this point, they've kind of already like made their little groups of friends. And so, yeah, then that's what I was going to talk about, disclosure. So for my first semester, like I said, I'd actually talked to my teachers, or well, mostly there's like a program director that I talked to a lot and told her what was going on. And so, she was really understanding, and there's a couple other teachers that sort of knew what was going on. And so they were awesome. But there was a couple newer teachers that didn't know me from the first semester that I'd done. And I didn't tell them what was going on because I didn't necessarily think they needed to know. But there was one class in specific where it was at the Humane Society, and after each class you had to, like, everybody had to clean up basically. And I just found, like, with everybody buzzing around cleaning up, I kind of was like, okay, too much going on. And
yeah,
and
there
so
was like too much stimulation for you in the environment, right?
yeah. So, and the teacher there, who, like I said, did not know my situation, came to me once. It was, I don't know, partway through the semester, and said, hey, well, we've noticed you haven't really been helping out. And I definitely got the idea that she felt like I was, just being lazy because she didn't know my situation. But I ended up having a meeting with her and my program counselor, who knew me and explained what was going on, and that made it a lot better.
Good.
So that's what I was, Barb was talking about disclosure and sort of the pros and cons there.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's definitely one pro that I found. I think had I told her at the beginning of the semester, I probably wouldn't have been in that situation. So
sure.
And yeah, so basically, like I said, after school, they decided not to do any radiation because there is still some tumor spots left, but since they're pretty sure it was radiation induced to begin with, they're like, maybe not the best idea to.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, like the ones that are there are slow growing, like the meningiomas are supposed to be. So
yeah.
And this was the time when I actually was my parents that went back to Pogo, well, my pediatric oncology, and they connected me to the Pogo aftercare clinic as an adult because, like I said, for whatever reason, that connection wasn't made.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before. I know Pogo was in their early beginnings, but time
Mhm.
factor came in there. But and then I also follow up with all my specialists, which are many,
Great.
as well as I finally got a family doctor who I
Oh,
did
good. Good.
a
Well,
new
sounds like
family doctor because
you've got a good
my
team
old
of
one
people around
retired.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got a new good, it sounds like you have a good group of people around you for your team.
Yeah. I mean, it's still tough because I do have so many doctors
Right.
for them to sort of coordinate everything
Yeah.
slash
Yeah.
me.
Fair enough.
But yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I
And
think
so, whoops. Here we
I was
go.
gonna say, I think that was it for sort of
Yeah.
treatment.
Yeah. So maybe
Um,
you could talk to us a little bit about how you're coping now, physically, mentally, emotionally, um, and how, you've moved forward with your life.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in 2019, which would have been, yeah, I guess it was shortly after I graduated. Like I did finish my second semester, no problem.
Awesome.
And that's when I started. Um, like I said, I was sort of linked back up with Pogo, and I went to. They had a life after childhood cancer retreat at this Camp Uchagayas,
Mhm.
which was a very beautiful place to sort of just
Gorgeous.
have a nice retreat. And of course, this
Yeah.
was 2019, the year before all of these things stopped being allowed to happen.
Yeah. Pre-pandemic. Yeah.
But that was, so I went to that. And I also went to a brain tumor foundation young adult retreat
Awesome.
in Muskoka,
Mhm.
another very beautiful area to
Mhm.
kind of just relax. And it definitely helped me connect with other people who are going through similar experiences or had gone through.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny because the one with Pogo was all adults who had gone through childhood cancer, which I had done, of course.
Mhm.
And then the ones with the Brain Tumor Foundation were, I'm pretty sure, all newly diagnosed brain tumor
Yeah,
patients. So
you're
I
right.
kind of had that sort of shared with each, like different things. So,
Yeah. Did you
um,
find that you were able to gain a lot of support? It was kind of probably like a automatic support group, wasn't it, at some of
yeah,
these events, I imagine?
yeah, because it was kind of funny, especially with Pogo, how like I kind of lost connection with my childhood cancer
Mhm.
kind of identity, I guess.
Mhm.
Like, because I kind of moved on past that. But all of a sudden now, like 20 years later, here was all these kids that had gone through similar things as me
Yeah.
20 years ago. So, it was definitely felt that connection
Good.
with everyone. So yeah, that definitely helped.
Good.
Yeah,
I love this slide. I love this slide, but also causes me stress. But I
yeah,
can imagine how, I mean, this is obviously how you're feeling and how stressful things can be for you. So I think it's a really good visual to show people that when there's too many things going on, it can
hmm
be very overwhelming. So I'll let you talk about that a little bit.
yeah. Because I remember trying to come up with a list of just things that bothered me or things that overwhelmed me, and
Yeah,
I was trying to put them into groups of like, okay, well, this might be caused by like the vision loss, or this is because of, and I'm like, you know what? Sometimes you just don't know what
yeah,
it's caused, or sometimes it's multiple things, and then so I just had this idea of like, well, let's just make a visual
yeah,
and really, this is the kind of stuff that like if I start feeling overwhelmed, it really is like this is what my brain looks like, or at least I imagine
yeah,
that like all
absolutely.
these things in my brain that, and maybe I do come from like the science background that I did in university where I'm
Hmm.
always trying to link the cause and effect,
Hmm.
but that
No,
can be
it's a
very,
really, really creative visual, Stephanie.
yeah.
So thank you for sharing this. And obviously speaks to your example earlier when you were in school and
Hmm.
students were cleaning up after class and you were labeled as lazy. This would be a really great visual for teachers and students and peers
Yeah,
to be like, this is what's happening for me in my brain right now,
yeah,
right?
exactly. And
Yeah.
it's, yeah. But yeah, so it can get very overwhelming, especially when
Yeah.
I like if it's just one thing, at a time, I can deal with it. But
Yeah.
when I start thinking about all these things that are
Yeah.
bugging me at once, it can get overwhelming.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and it's a good reminder to our audience as well that the brain controls everything that we do, right? And so
Hmm.
when there's a lot of stimulation coming in,
Yeah.
it might be very difficult for some, if the TV's on and music's playing and people are talking and there's other noise, and
Yeah.
it's about creating an environment that's a little bit more calming for
Yeah.
people so that you
It's
can
actually kind of
help
funny. I
focus.
talked with my dad. He's a computer engineer, but
Mhm.
so I often bring up this idea. I have an old laptop. Actually, yesterday it was not working because there was too many things it was
Yeah,
trying to do at once.
sure.
And I'm like, that's what my brain is like. An old
Yeah,
computer that's just stalling because
100%. My personal computer at home, every time I click something, it says not responding, and I just have to
yeah.
wait and wait and wait.
Yeah. So I like
Okay.
that, using that analysis as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great analysis. Well, thanks for sharing that visual for us for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, you have here that when you notice you start to feel overwhelmed, you kind of force yourself to slow down and focus on
Hmm.
something that you can do. So
Hmm.
these are great examples you have here.
Yeah, so I was gonna talk about this picture was actually something. It's through the Canadian Cancer Foundation, I think,
Mhm.
whatever that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I got that right. But they had a Mademoiselle.
Oh,
Just I believe it was like the year after my surgery, which was a mud run, to raise money. But I think, but it was just like I just remember feeling so proud of myself that I actually did this.
good for you.
And
I
raised.
I only run if something or somebody's chasing me. So good on
Yeah.
you for.
Well, I mean, they call it a mud run, but we walked the whole time.
Oh,
Like,
good.
but I mean, it was just fun because
Yeah,
you were walking through mud pits.
yeah,
It was just kind of fun to just, hey, I did this. And
yeah. Very cool. Would you do it again?
yeah.
Yeah,
But of course, like I said, that would have been around 2019, the year
yeah,
before COVID, which means that they're probably not going to do anything like this
yeah,
anytime soon. But I
yeah.
have hope that eventually, once this passes, that we'll
Exactly,
be able to
exactly.
do that again. So yeah, otherwise, like I said, I just do. I do find a lot of quotes
Mhm.
that I like to refer back to. Sometimes they're from books or
Yeah,
songs or movies.
yeah.
Um,
You've got this one
and
from Dory.
yeah, I was gonna say, which, as some people who know me will know that I have a knack for looking at Disney quotes,
Awesome.
to just keep swimming when. And I
Yep.
remember watching this movie. I'm trying to think how old I would have been, but um, that just has always stuck with me. Is the
Yeah,
idea of, if life's not going the way you want to, just, all you can do is just keep swimming and
yeah. Just
keep.
keep moving forward.
Yeah. And I
It's a
mean, I know my parents had a sort of quote that they used a lot, was just one day at a time,
yeah,
when I was going through my childhood stuff. And I've kind of adopted that too, where, if you look too far ahead, it can be a little scary sometimes.
yeah, for sure. We start to stress about things that are really out of our control, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
But
No, it's
just
a
taking things one at a time, and, okay, what's the next thing you can do now, and
mhm,
go from there.
100%. No, it's a really, really great quote, really great
Yeah.
reminder. Thank you. And great photos here as well. And cutie patootie dog. Tell us about Stella.
Yes, so Stella is my neighbor's dog. Unfortunately, she actually just moved away this summer.
Aw, bummer.
She was basically my therapy dog ever since like my first surgery.
That's
Um,
so nice.
my neighbors found out I like dogs, and I don't have a dog of my own. I have a cat, but
Mhm.
they were both working. Like their kids had gone off to school, and so they're like, "Well, our dog is home alone all day. Like, do you want to just?" She needs some love, and
Yeah, why not? That's great. So you
so
took
I
her
would
out for
just,
walks and hung
yeah.
out with
And it
her.
was, like I said, it's like low impact exercise, which
Yep,
was good. Even if I didn't have a lot of energy, I'd just
yep,
take her for a walk around the block,
yeah,
and sometimes we'd come home and sleep, as you can
yep.
see. A couple
A
of
little
those,
nap together.
yeah. And she was just the best little snuggly dog, and
Fun. What
and I
kind of dog is she? You
She's
know,
a mixed
a mix.
breed.
Yeah.
I think my neighbors were told she was part poodle,
Okay.
but they don't really know for sure. So,
Yeah. So
but
any
she,
plans for you to get a dog?
not really.
No, not yet.
um, but who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because I also would take her when they would go off to visit grandkids or whatever.
Mhm.
She'd spend the week at my house, and I would kind of realize, like, oh yeah, I guess, if I had my own dog, I'd have to do the same kind of thing.
Yeah. It's a lot of responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I know, like, I'd been bugging my parents since I was little for a dog, and I was 15 when I got my cat,
Yeah.
which was sort of a compromise because we knew at least, cats are a little bit, you can leave them at least alone for like the day, and
Yeah, they're a
they'll
little
be
bit more.
happy.
They're a little bit more self-sufficient, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome.
yes, so nice fun times, and it was relaxing to go on walks too, which was
Good.
really good. So
That's awesome. So we always ask our personal stories of hope presenters to
mhm.
give some tips for family and friends and caregivers. So I'll let you take it over again.
Yeah. So I've kind of learned because my parents were my caregivers both as a kid and as an adult. I mean, I was really grateful to have them there even as an adult because, even I definitely felt like, as an adult, I shouldn't need help. I felt like I should be able to be independent, but so in a way I kind of felt bad when they had to help, but now I've kind of realized that, that's what they do. And
Yeah, we all need help at times, right? Regardless
yeah,
of age or stage of life, right? Yeah.
yeah. So there, I did include a picture of my mom and I just hanging out
Nice.
after one of my surgeries. I'm not sure which one that was, but and yeah, so I found out too, like that the idea that they need help as well,
Mhm.
because yeah, I know I can't imagine somebody who just sort of has one caregiver and not that caregiver not having any support.
Fair. Yeah, that's tough.
I mean, I was, like I said, I feel really happy that my parents had each other.
Mhm.
And like I said, they would take turns coming into the hospital, which I know you can't always do right now with COVID, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but and then the other thing, yeah, I point I put in was how I remember a story of how, like, when I was younger, people would like my friends, people my mom knew, as in her friends, would often ask, how am I doing? But there was one day that somebody actually asked how she was doing.
Mhm.
And that really surprised her because she's like, no one's ever asked me. And I
Yep.
feel like that's an important thing too, is for caregivers, like, they in order for them to help you, they need to be,
Yeah.
supported as well. So
Absolutely. And on that topic, we have our adult and pediatric brain tumor handbooks, but we also have a handbook specifically for caregivers as well.
mhm.
And also for people who are diagnosed with non-malignant brain tumors, like a meningioma. That was, I mean, yours
Yeah,
was kind of on the cusp, but yeah.
yeah, originally, well, I mean, it's still technically non-malignant, but
Yeah. Yeah. So just a
um,
reminder to our audience that we do have those resources and they're free for anybody across Canada, and they're available in English and French and in print or electronic as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, my dad picked one up at I'm pretty sure it was at one of the hospitals.
Great. Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember, like, that was the first time I kind of heard of this idea of like non-malignant brain
Yeah.
tumors, and yeah, like I was like, oh, because at the very beginning we didn't know what kind it was, even
Right.
like they hadn't even told us it was a meningioma yet because they have to do all the pathology first. And
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, it's definitely good to those handbooks definitely helped. I remember like
Yeah.
just having something written that I could refer to. And
Good. Good. Glad to
yeah, and
hear.
then one last thing here for caregivers
Yeah.
is so my dad would kept like a daily blog on the computer
Hmm.
ever since like my childhood, and it really helped him keep track of like what was going on in his
Yeah.
mind, and it was sort of therapeutic for him. And then I also find it's really neat to go back and read some of the things he wrote.
Yeah.
And I did put the website in there if anybody wants to go check it out.
That's great. Thank you.
But this is just one sort of entry that I pulled out.
I'm gonna actually just copy this and put it in the chat.
Okay.
For us as well. So if anybody wants to go directly to that link, that article, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And he's put in some pictures as well.
Oh, great. So. Great. That's
and
awesome.
He's put some of the more recent entries in as well. He didn't quite keep up as much as he used to, but definitely. So this is one entry he put in 1998 when I was 6 years old.
Wow.
So Stephanie had her MRI done this morning. She did it perfectly without moving or fussing at all. She's really funny like that. She'll make a big fuss about taking a piece of tape off. But for something as scary as being in a tube for 20 to 30 minutes, she didn't complain at all.
Amazing.
So it's just kind of funny. Like you can really see, like, I mean, now I have MRIs like crazy. And there I was 6-year-old having one. And I think there is part of that entry in some, I guess as the 6-year-old, they usually sedate the kids because they're worried that they're going to move.
Yeah.
But I think my parents said, like she's really good. She won't move. And they were kind of iffy, but, I guess I showed them a thing or two because apparently I didn't move at all. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know you have some tips for healthcare professionals as well, because as you know, we have a lot of healthcare professionals that listen to our webinars and really love hearing these personal stories of hope so they can learn as well.
Yeah. So yes, my first thing is just thank you. Like I can't, I always say thank you to whenever I can to all my healthcare professionals. And the one thing that came up actually, it was a talk I had with my family doctor recently, is that there's nothing wrong with admitting that you don't know something. And, as frustrating as it is for patients as well as healthcare professionals, I think that, doctors don't always have all the answers. And I know that was one thing, I was asking my family doctor something and he's like, well, I'm not really sure, you'll have to ask, this specialist or whatever. And, that can be frustrating because, you want answers, but I think that's better than him just having made something up.
100%.
So, and he pointed me in the direction to get the answer I want. So I always think that's good. And the other thing I said is not that I don't envy the burden that they must, like healthcare professionals must carry and decisions they have to make. My MRI tech story is, like I had said, when I had my first MRI, like I said, I put those pictures of the sort of what I call my giant brain tumor, but and she would have seen that, but wasn't allowed to tell me anything.
Right.
That's just part of the system. So she had to sort of very calmly tell me, like, okay, you can get dressed, and then please follow me. like I just, that must have been such a burden on her not to be able to say anything.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And I just, like I said, I really appreciate how calmly she did that, and without making a big deal out of it. Just And the other thing again came up with my new family doctor is to try and keep, like, for if doctors could somehow encourage patients to keep written notes. At least this is what my family doctor sort of told me, because this was a new family doctor. He didn't know any of my history, and I was trying to like fill him in, but I kind of assumed like he can just look all this up if he needs to, but apparently it doesn't work that way.
Right. Well, and also just to let everybody know, in the back of our handbooks, we often have like sections where people can keep track of their appointments or the names and phone numbers of all their healthcare professionals, any questions that arise between appointments that they want to make sure they ask their physicians or their nurses or their social workers. So yeah, that's a really great suggestion, Stephanie.
Yeah. And I also put in there, like, it was just my thought, but like what you said, yes, there is a brain tumor handbook
Yeah.
sort of template to follow or whatever. But sometimes I kind of wonder if somehow, but I don't know. It's just me thinking it would be awesome if there's sort of just this universal template or book or something that to keep track of everything. But,
for sure. That's great. Those are great
or
suggestions.
maybe we need an app in these days. I mean,
well, hey, and Brain Tumor Foundation of Canada is actually building an app, so maybe that's something we can look at, down the road as a potential resource. 100%.
Because it's definitely hard to keep track of everything.
There's a lot.
Especially when you're going through it, you're just focused on, remembering the information for yourself. But
exactly. Well, I'm really impressed, Stephanie, that you've reached out to various organizations over the years to get support and information. So I'll let you talk a little bit about some of these programs that you've accessed. I know that you've mentioned a couple of them already, but a good overview.
So of course there's POGO that Barb is a part of. And I believe that may have been the first organization actually Brain Tumor Foundation was probably about the same time, but yeah, so they do have their Survivor to Survivor network, which I think we were talking before. I think I went to 2 in-person ones. So there's sort of like I said, it's a childhood cancer survivor giving a little presentation, I guess, to other survivors. So you really feel like this connection to other survivors. And I was actually in 2020 one of those survivors giving presentations. So
cool.
And it's just a really neat sort of group like that builds community sort of thing. And then of course, like I said, there's the Brain Tumor Foundation of Canada. I'm part of the Facebook support group there. And then recently I also joined with the Young Adult Cancer Canada, which Barb also mentioned, I think. YAC. And I've been to a few of their online conferences, which again was really neat and like building that sort of community of feeling like other people that have been through similar things. And actually, I do know that they've recently.
Is it just me that I can't hear Stephanie, or can anybody else hear Stephanie? It could be my internet. Somebody could let me know in the chat. Is it just Stephanie that's frozen, or is it my internet? She's frozen. Okay. Thank you for letting me know. There you are, Stephanie. Sorry, you froze. Could you hear me?
I could, yeah.
Okay, you were frozen, but now we can hear you.
Yeah, I did get a message that said my internet was slow or something.
Okay,
so
no problem.
So yeah, I was just saying about Young Adult Cancer Canada. It used to be that you had to have been diagnosed as a young adult, but they've recently now, I think, changed their policy for doesn't matter what age you were diagnosed, whether it's as a child or a young adult.
Okay.
As long as you are currently a young adult.
Okay.
You can access their programs, which I
That's
thought
great.
was, because when I actually applied, I technically wasn't like I had childhood cancer. I was diagnosed with a brain tumor, which wasn't technically cancer.
Right.
As a young adult, and I wasn't really sure if I was qualified. Nobody said anything, but
right.
But now I feel like that's really neat that they've done that.
That's good.
And there's also a newish, at least for me, is Childhood Cancer Survivor Canada, which I believe is mostly organized by childhood cancer survivors as well.
Correct.
Which is neat. And that's, sometimes there are a lot of groups and it can be a little overwhelming if you try and sort of do everything.
Yeah.
So I do try and sort of just treat it like a buffet. And, some days I'll go more with one or sort of pick and choose depending how I feel.
I love that example. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot, like I said, each one has a lot of different things, but some overlap in what they offer. So
that's great.
See what works for you. And
yeah, exactly. And see what works with your schedule, see what works with,
Mhm.
you know, if it's an in-person event or virtual, you know, there's a lot
Yeah.
to consider.
And I mean, most of these, probably all of them by now would probably have all virtual
Yeah, exactly.
events, which is, just great as well. And you don't have to go anywhere.
Yep, yep. Definitely some pros and cons, right? We want that human interaction, but it's great
Yeah,
that we can
definitely.
still have the virtual options, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Absolutely. Okay, and I think we're coming up to the end of your
I think so,
presentation
yeah.
here with another awesome quote. So
Yes,
I'll
as
let
I
you read
said,
it.
the Disney trend. So this is from Winnie the Pooh.
Mhm.
Always remember you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think, and loved more than you know.
Awesome. Well done, Stephanie. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. I don't see any questions or comments that have popped up, but if anybody has a question or a comment for Stephanie, you can throw it into the Q&A section and I'll relay that to her. But you know what, Stephanie, it takes a lot of courage to come online, whether it's online or in person, to share your experiences. And we really, really appreciate you kind of digging deep and letting us know what you've experienced over the years. And Sarah says, thanks, Stephanie, for sharing so eloquently. So yes, I agree, Sarah. And if any other comments or questions come up after the presentation, I'll definitely reach out to you directly and we'll get you connected with some people. Sound good?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks again, Stephanie. Before everybody else signs off, I'll ask for your attention just one more minute. I'm going to just stop sharing the screen here. And once again, thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Anytime.